They cut me off financially, right after I paid off their debt. I stood in my tiny kitchen, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, clutching a letter that felt like a knife in my gut. My hands trembled as I read the words again. Notice of disinheritance. My parents, the people I'd spent years bailing out of financial ruin, had just cut me out of their will.
Completely.
Not a cent, not a word of explanation, just a cold, legal document from some lawyer in a town I'd never heard of. I was Jenna, 30 years old, the daughter who'd paid off their $200,000 debt with every dollar I had. I'd worked double shifts, sold my car, skipped vacations, and drained my savings to keep their house from foreclosure. And this was my reward? A piece of paper telling me I was nothing to them? The letter sat on the counter next to Mom's chipped blue coffee mug, the one she always used when she came over. It was still half full from her last visit 2 weeks ago, the coffee cold and stale, like some cruel reminder of her. My chest tightened, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. How do you even process something like this? How do you look at the people who raised you, who called you their miracle daughter, who hugged you and cried when you saved their home, and realize they've been planning to betray you? I kept staring at that letter, the words blurring through tears I didn't want to let fall. Effective immediately, like I was some stranger they could just erase. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd celebrated paying off their debt just a month ago. I could still hear Mom's voice, shaky with relief, saying, "Jenna, you're our savior. We'd be on the street without you." Dad had nodded, his eyes misty, raising a glass of cheap wine to toast our girl. We'd eaten takeout pizza, laughed, made plans for a family barbecue to celebrate being free.
Free.
What a sick joke. 2 weeks after that check cleared, they stopped answering my calls. No texts, no emails, no nothing. Just silence. And now, this letter. I thought back to the day I handed them the final payment, $47,000, every cent I had left. I'd driven to their house in my beat-up rental car, the one I got after selling my Honda to cover their last mortgage payment. Mom had hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, her perfume clinging to my sweater. Dad had clapped me on the shoulder, his voice gruff. "You're one in a million, kid." We'd sat together, the three of us, talking about how things would be different now. No more stress, no more late-night calls from creditors. I'd felt so proud, so needed. I was the one who fixed everything, the one who held our family together. I was their daughter. But now, staring at that letter, I felt like I was falling apart. The kitchen felt too small, the walls closing in. I wanted to scream, to throw that mug against the wall and watch it shatter, to drive to their house and demand answers. Why would they do this? Why would the people I loved most, the ones I'd given everything for, turn their backs the second I had nothing left to give? I kept replaying every moment, every conversation, looking for a clue. Had I missed something? Had they been planning this all along? I walked to the sink, gripping the edge so hard my knuckles turned white. The letter mentioned a lawyer named Richard Grayson in Burlington, Vermont, 2 hours from my apartment in Albany. I'd never heard of him. Why Burlington? Why a lawyer? My parents lived 20 minutes away, in a house I'd paid for. They could have just told me to my face. Instead, they sent this. It felt like a slap, like they wanted me to feel small, insignificant. Like I wasn't even worth a conversation. I thought about calling them, but my phone sat untouched on the counter. What would I even say? "Hey, Mom, Dad, did you mean to stab me in the back? Or was this just a fun little surprise?" I almost laughed at the thought, but it caught in my throat, turning into a
sob. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to give them that.
But the hurt was too big, too raw. How do you confront people who don't even think they owe you an explanation? How do you fight for a place in a family that's already decided you don't belong? I looked at the mug again. It wasn't just any mug. It was the one Mom used every morning when I was a kid, the one she'd sip from while we talked about school or boys or my big dreams of being a graphic designer. It was the mug she'd brought to my apartment when she'd visit, saying, "This old thing's still got life in it." Just like her. Just like us. Or so I thought. Now it felt like a prop in a play I didn't know I was starring in. A play where I was the fool. I picked up the letter again, scanning for details. There was a line about revised estate plans and new beneficiaries. New beneficiaries?
Who?
My brother, Ethan, who hadn't spoken to them in years. Some cousin I barely knew? Or maybe nobody, just a final middle finger to me.
I didn't know. I didn't understand.
All I knew was that I'd given them everything, and they'd taken it and run. I'm Jenna, 30, a graphic designer who's been hustling since I was 18 to make something of myself. I grew up in a small town just outside Albany, New York, in a house that always felt like it was one bad day from falling apart. My parents, Linda and Tom, were the kind of people who loved big but lived messy. Dad was a mechanic, always covered in grease, always promising to fix the leaky roof next weekend. Mom was a part-time receptionist who dreamed of being a painter, but never had the time or money to try. I was their only kid, the one who kept the peace, who made sure the bills got paid when they forgot, who cleaned up the messes they didn't see.
I didn't mind.
I loved them. They were my world. But there were always cracks in our family, little things that didn't sit right. Mom would borrow money from me, $50 here, $100 there, promising to pay it back, but she never did. I'd find her crying in the living room some nights, saying the bank was calling again, that they were going to lose the house. Dad would just shut down, disappear into the garage for hours. I was 16 when I started working at a diner after school, slipping my paychecks to Mom to cover the electric bill. By 20, I was paying their car loans. By 25, I was covering their mortgage. I didn't question it. That's what you do for family, right? You show up. You fix things. Still, there were moments that made me pause. Like when I was 22 and Mom asked me to co-sign a loan for them. I hesitated. My credit was all I had, but she looked me in the eyes and said, "Jenna, you're the only one we can trust."
So I signed.
Or when Dad sold my old bike, the one I'd saved up for as a kid, without asking me. We needed the cash, he said, like it was nothing. I let it go. I always let it go. They were my parents. They'd never hurt me, not really. At least, that's what I told myself. Looking back, I see the red flags. The way Mom would change the subject when I asked about their finances. The way Dad would get defensive if I pushed too hard about where my money was going. They'd always thank me, always call me their rock. But there was this undercurrent, this quiet expectation that I'd keep giving, keep saving them. I thought it was love. I thought it was loyalty. But now, holding that disinheritance letter, I wondered if it was something else entirely. I'd moved out at 24, renting a one-bedroom apartment in Albany to be close to my design clients. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I'd built a life, freelance gigs, a few close friends, a dream of starting my own studio someday. But most of my money went to them. By 28, I was paying their mortgage outright, $1,500 a month, plus whatever else they needed. Groceries. Car repairs. That time their water heater broke. I didn't have savings. I didn't have a safety net. I had them. And I thought that was enough. There was this one moment, maybe a year ago, that keeps replaying in my head. Mom came over with that chipped blue mug, sat at my kitchen table, and started talking about their will. "You know, Jenna, we're leaving everything to you," she said, stirring her coffee. "The house, whatever we've got. You've earned it." I'd smiled, embarrassed, and changed the subject. I didn't want their house. I just wanted them to be okay. But now, I could see it, her eyes darting away, her voice a little too sweet. Was she lying even then? Was this the plan all along? I'd always been the fixer, the one who made things right. When I was a kid, I'd organize the pantry when Mom forgot to buy groceries. In high school, I'd forged Dad's signature on permission slips because he was too distracted to sign them. I thought that's what love looked like, stepping in, taking care of things. But now, I was starting to wonder if I'd been played. If they'd seen me not as their daughter, but as their safety net, their atom. The letter in my hand felt heavier now. I kept thinking about that final payment, the $47,000 I'd wired to their bank to clear the mortgage. I'd done it in this same kitchen, on my laptop, my hands shaking with pride and relief. I thought we'd made it through. I thought we were a team. But a week later, Mom canceled our Sunday dinner. "Just busy," she texted. Dad stopped calling to check in. I'd drive by their house sometimes, see their cars in the driveway, but they were never home when I knocked. I told myself they were just adjusting, that freedom was new for them. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Something was coming. How do you love people who use you? How do you trust a family that waits until you're empty to throw you away? I didn't have answers. All I had was that letter and a sinking feeling that this was only the beginning. 2 weeks after the letter arrived, I was still a mess, pacing my apartment, trying to make sense of it. I hadn't slept properly, hadn't eaten much either, just coffee and whatever was left in my fridge. The disinheritance notice sat on my kitchen counter, mocking me every time I passed by. I kept rereading it, hoping I'd miss something, some loophole or explanation. But it was airtight. Jenna Marie Thompson is hereby excluded from the estate of Linda and Thomas Thompson. No reason given. No warning. Just my name, crossed out like a mistake. I finally worked up the nerve to call Mom. My hands were sweating as I dialed, my heart hammering. It rang 5 times before going to voicemail. Hey, it's Linda. Leave a message. Her voice was so cheerful it made my stomach turn. I tried Dad next, same thing. Voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What was I supposed to say? Hi. It's your daughter. The one you just disowned. Care to explain? I threw my phone on the couch, cursing under my breath. That's when I decided to drive to their house. It was a Saturday, gray and cold, the kind of day that makes everything feel heavier. Their place was only 20 minutes away, a small ranch-style house I'd spent years paying for. I pulled into the driveway, my rental car's engine rattling, and saw their old Buick parked out front. They were home. I sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel, trying to figure out what I'd even say. How do you ask your parents why they've erased you from their lives? I knocked on the door, my knuckles stinging from the cold. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Finally, the door cracked open, and there was Mom, her face tight, like she'd been expecting someone else. Jenna, she said, not opening the door any wider. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? I laughed, but it came out sharp, bitter. I got your letter, Mom. The one that says I'm not your daughter anymore. Care to tell me what's going on?
She didn't invite me in.
She just stood there, one hand on the doorframe, the other clutching her cardigan. It's not like that, she said, her voice low. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand. Try me, I said, stepping closer. I paid off your house, Mom. $200,000. My savings. My life. And you cut me out? You don't even call me? Her eyes flicked away, like she couldn't stand to look at me. You're not part of this family anymore, Jenna, she said, so quiet I almost missed it. It's better this way. I felt like I'd been punched. Better for who? I asked, my voice shaking. Better for you and Dad? Because I'm the one who's been holding this family together since I was a kid. She didn't answer. She just shook her head and closed the door. I stood there, staring at the faded paint, hearing the lock click. My own mother had just shut me out, literally. I wanted to bang on the door, to scream until she opened it, but my legs felt like jelly. I stumbled back to my car, tears burning my eyes, and drove home in a daze. When I got back to my apartment, I found an email from that lawyer, Richard Grayson. It was short, formal, like he was checking a box. Miss Thompson, please be advised that your parents' estate plan has been updated per their wishes. Any further inquiries should be directed to my office. Attached was a scanned document, a new will, dated 2 days after I'd paid off their mortgage. My name wasn't in it. Instead, the beneficiaries were listed as charitable organizations and other parties. Other parties? Who? My brother, Ethan, who hadn't spoken to them in a decade. Some random cousin? I didn't know. I didn't even know where to start. I sat on my couch, the email glowing on my laptop screen, and felt this cold, creeping doubt. What if I'd been wrong about them my whole life? What if all those years of bailing them out, of being their rock, were just me playing a role they'd written for me? I thought about every time Mom had cried about the bank, every time Dad had said, "We'll pay you back, kid." Had it all been a lie? Had they been using me, waiting until I had nothing left to give before cutting me loose. I called my best friend, Sarah, and told her everything. She was quiet for a long time, then said, "Jenna, this isn't right. You need to talk to a lawyer. Something's off." She was right, but I didn't know where to begin. I wasn't rich. I didn't have money for legal fees. I'd given it all to them. But Sarah's words stuck with me. Something was off. The timing, the secrecy, the way Mom couldn't look me in the eye. There was more to this, and I needed to find out what. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Mom's face, the way she'd said, "You're not part of this family anymore." It wasn't just words. It was a knife, cutting through every memory I had of us. The family dinners, the late-night talks, the time I'd stayed up all night helping Dad fix his truck. Was it all fake? Had I been loving people who didn't love me back? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let this go. Not yet. 3 weeks later, I was still reeling from Mom's words. "You're not part of this family anymore." They looped in my head, a constant hum of pain and confusion. I'd stopped trying to call them. Every unanswered ring felt like another rejection, another door slammed in my face. Instead, I started digging. If they wouldn't give me answers, I'd find them myself. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I couldn't just sit there, letting their betrayal define me.
I started with the bank.
I'd been sending money to their account for years, so I figured there might be a paper trail. I called my bank, pretending I needed records for taxes, and requested statements from the joint account I'd shared with Mom for the mortgage payments. It was a long shot, but I remembered Mom insisting we set it up that way for convenience. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? She was my mom. The statements arrived in my email a few days later. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, that chipped blue mug staring at me like a silent witness. At first, it looked normal, my transfers $1,500 a month. Sometimes more, going straight to their mortgage company. But then I saw something weird. A withdrawal for $10,000 dated a week after the final mortgage payment. Then another for $5,000. And another for $8,000. All going to an account I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. I hadn't authorized those. Had Mom? I called the bank again, my voice shaking. "Can you tell me where these transfers went?" The teller was polite but firm. "You're not the primary account holder, Miss Thompson. You'd need your mother's permission to access that information." I almost laughed. My mother, who wouldn't even open her door for me, wasn't going to give me permission for anything. But it hit me then. She'd been taking money out, money I'd put in, without telling me. Was this what the disinheritance was about? Were they hiding something bigger? I felt sick, betrayed all over again. How do you trust someone who's been stealing from you under your nose? How do you love a mother who treats your life's work like her personal piggy bank? I didn't have proof it was theft, not yet, but those transfers were a neon sign screaming something was wrong. A week later, I got a call from my cousin, Rachel, who I hadn't spoken to in years. She sounded nervous, her voice all rushed. "Jenna, can we talk? It's about Aunt Linda and Uncle Tom." I froze. Rachel was Mom's niece, but they weren't close. Why was she calling now? "They're having a family meeting tomorrow," she said. "At their house. I thought you should know." "A family meeting?" I asked. "Why wasn't I invited?" Rachel hesitated. "I don't know. They just said it's about the estate. I heard your name came up." My blood ran cold. A meeting about the estate? The same estate they'd just cut me out of? I thanked Rachel, hung up, and sat there, my mind racing. I wasn't invited, but I wasn't going to let them erase me that easily. I decided to show up. Uninvited. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd play too. The next day, I drove to their house, my heart pounding. I parked a block away, not wanting them to see my car. The driveway was full. Rachel's SUV, my Uncle Mike's truck, even my brother Ethan's old Jeep. Ethan? He hadn't spoken to them since he moved to California 5 years ago. What was he doing here? I slipped in through the back door, the one we never locked, and stood in the hallway listening. Mom's voice carried from the living room. "We just think it's fair, you know? Ethan's been through so much, and he needs the support." I heard murmurs of agreement. Then Dad. Jenna's fine. She's got her career, her apartment. She doesn't need anything from us. I felt like I'd been slapped. Doesn't need anything? I'd given them everything, my savings, my future, and now I was fine? I stepped into the doorway, my hand shaking. Really, Dad?
Are you fine?
The room went silent. Mom's face went white. Ethan, sitting on the couch, wouldn't meet my eyes. Uncle Mike coughed awkwardly. Jenna, Mom started. This isn't a good time. No, I said, my voice louder than I meant. You don't get to decide that.
You cut me out of your will, Mom.
After I paid off your house. And now you're giving it all to Ethan? Who hasn't even called you in years. Ethan finally looked up, his jaw tight. This isn't about you, Jenna. It's about what's fair. Fair. I laughed, tears stinging my eyes. I gave up everything for this family. And you're all sitting here, dividing up what I paid for, like I'm nothing. Nobody answered. Mom just stared at her hands, and Dad looked out the window. I turned and walked out, my chest burning with rage and shame. They didn't even try to stop me. Back home, I couldn't shake Ethan's words.
Fair.
What did he know about fair? He'd left us years ago, chasing some tech job in San Francisco, never looking back. I'd been the one picking up the pieces, paying the bills, keeping Mom and Dad afloat. And now he was back, swooping in to claim what? Their house? Their savings? Whatever I'd built for them. I started going through old emails, looking for anything that might explain this. That's when I found it, a scanned document from 2 years ago, a loan application with my signature on it. Except I hadn't signed it. It was my name, my handwriting, but I'd never seen this form. It was for $50,000, taken out against the house. My house. The one I'd paid off. I called Sarah, my voice shaking as I read her the document. They forged my signature, Sarah. They took out a loan in my name, and I'm betting they never paid it back. Sarah was quiet for a second, then said, Jenna, you need a lawyer.
Now.
I felt like I was drowning. How do you process that your parents would forge your name? That they'd risk your credit, your future, for their own gain? I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was staring me in the face. They hadn't just cut me off, they'd been stealing from me for years. A month later, I hired a lawyer, a woman named Carla, who Sarah recommended. She was no nonsense, flipping through my documents with a frown. This is fraud, Jenna, she said. The forged signature, the secret withdrawals, it's all actionable. But we need more. Carla suggested I track down Ethan. He's involved somehow, she said. The timing's too convenient. I didn't want to believe it. Ethan was my brother, my annoying big brother, even if we weren't close. But I needed answers. I found his number through an old friend and called him. He picked up on the third ring. Jenna? How'd you get this number? Doesn't matter, I said. Why are you at Mom and Dad's? Why are you suddenly their heir? He sighed, like I was annoying him. Look, they called me. Said they wanted to make things right. I didn't ask for this. Then why didn't you tell me? I snapped. You knew I was paying their bills, Ethan. You knew what I gave up. I didn't know the whole story, he said. They told me you didn't want to be involved anymore. I laughed, a sharp, angry sound. They disowned me, Ethan. After I paid off their house. And you didn't think to check with me? He was quiet for a long time. Then, they showed me a letter. From you. Saying you wanted out. My blood ran cold. Another forgery? Or a lie? I never wrote that, I said. Meet me. Tomorrow. Bring that letter. He hesitated. I don't have it anymore. Convenient, I said, my voice shaking. You're lying, Ethan. Or they're lying to you. And you're just eating it up. He hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling like the ground was crumbling under me. My own brother, siding with them. Believing their lies. What kind of family does this? What kind of people take everything from you and then rewrite the story to make you the villain? Carla dug deeper into the bank records. A week later, she called me with news. That $50,000 loan? It went to an offshore account. Your parents' names are on it, but there's a third name. Ethan. My heart stopped. Ethan?
Yeah, she said.
Looks like they've been funneling money to him for years. Small amounts, then bigger ones after you paid off the mortgage. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My parents had been stealing from me, and my brother wasn't on it? I thought about that family meeting, the way Ethan wouldn't look at me. Had he known all along? Had he been waiting for me to empty myself out so he could swoop in? I called him again, but he didn't pick up. I left a voicemail. I know about the account, Ethan. I know you've been taking their money, my money. Call me back, or I'm coming for you. He didn't call back. But that night, I found a new email from the lawyer, Grayson. Another document, this one a bank statement from that offshore account. It showed $75,000 in deposits over 2 years, all from the joint account I'd been funding. And Ethan's name was all over it. I sat on my couch, staring at the screen, tears streaming down my face. My family hadn't just cut me off. They'd been bleeding me dry, and my own brother was helping them do it. How do you come back from that? How do you look at the people you loved most and see strangers? I was done. Done crying, done begging for answers, done pretending I could fix this. Sitting on my couch, staring at that bank statement with Ethan's name on it, something broke inside me. Not my heart, this was deeper, like the part of me that believed in family, in loyalty, just shattered. I was 30 years old, and I'd given everything to people who'd been robbing me blind. My parents, my brother, they'd turned my life into their personal ATM, and when I had nothing left, they threw me away. I felt like I was falling, like the ground I'd been standing on my whole life had vanished. It was late, maybe 2 a.m., and my apartment was dead quiet except for the hum of the fridge. That chipped blue mug was still on the counter, staring at me like it knew all my secrets. I wanted to smash it, to watch it break into 1,000 pieces, but I couldn't. It was all I had left of Mom, of the version of her I thought I knew. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and started typing, pouring out everything, every payment, every late-night call from Mom crying about the bank, every time Dad promised to make it right. I wrote until my fingers hurt, until the sky outside turned gray. It wasn't a plan, not yet, but it was something. A record. Proof that I wasn't crazy. The next morning, I called Carla, my lawyer. My voice was hoarse, like I'd been screaming all night. I want to know everything, I told her. Every dollar, every lie. I don't care what it costs me. She was calm, professional, but I could hear the edge in her voice when she said, Jenna, this is bigger than you thought. That offshore account? It's not just Ethan. There's a trust tied to it, and your parents have been moving money into it for years. We're talking at least $100,000. I felt like I'd been punched. 100,000? That's my money, Carla. I paid their mortgage, their bills, everything. How did I not see this? You trusted them, she said, not unkindly. They used that. But we're going to nail them, Jenna. I need you to get me every document you have, bank statements, emails, that forged loan application. All of it. I spent the next 2 days digging through old files, emails, even text messages. Every receipt, every transfer, every time Mom asked for just a little help. It was like peeling back layers of my life and finding rot underneath. There was an email from Dad 3 years ago saying, "You're our lifeline, kid. Don't know what we'd do without you." I'd saved it, thinking it was love. Now it felt like a script, like he'd been playing me the whole time. How do you look at your own father and see a con man? How do you love someone who's been lying to your face for years? By the 3rd week, I was barely eating, barely sleeping. I'd lost weight, my clothes hanging loose, my eyes red from staring at screens or crying or both. Sarah came over one night, took one look at me and said, "Jenna, you're killing yourself over this. You need to stop." Stop. I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant. They stole from me, Sarah. They stole my money, my trust, my whole damn life. And Ethan's in on it. I can't stop. She sat down, her face soft but firm. I get it. I do. But you're not them. You're not the one who did this. Don't let them take you down with them. Her words hit hard, like a slap that wakes you up. I'd been so focused on their betrayal, I hadn't noticed what it was doing to me. I looked around my apartment, Empty takeout containers, unwashed dishes, that stupid mug still sitting there. I was falling apart, letting their lies swallow me whole. That's when it clicked. I wasn't just fighting for answers. I was fighting for myself, for the person I'd been before they drained me dry. The next day, I found something that changed everything. I was going through a box of old papers, stuff I'd kept from Mom's visits, recipes, birthday cards, random notes. Tucked inside a faded Christmas card was a folded piece of paper, a bank letter addressed to me, dated 2 years ago. It was a notice about a second mortgage on my parents' house, one I'd never heard of, with my name listed as a cosigner. Another forged signature. My heart pounded as I read it. They'd taken out $75,000, and I was on the hook for it. If they defaulted, the bank would come for me. I called Carla, my hand shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. They did it again, I said. Another loan, another fake signature. They've been using my name to borrow money I didn't even know about. Carla was quiet for a second, then said, "This is fraud, Jenna. Serious fraud. We can go after them for this, but it's going to be ugly. Are you ready?" Was I ready? I didn't know. I thought about Mom's face, the way she'd shut the door on me. Dad's voice, saying I was fine without them. Ethan, lying about some fake letter I'd never written. They'd taken everything, my money, my trust, my place in the family. And now they'd left me with their debts, their lies, their mess. I was at rock bottom, staring at that Christmas card with its cheerful love, Mom and Dad scrawled in red ink. It felt like a cruel joke. But something shifted in me that day. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Angry enough to fight back. "Yeah," I told Carla, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. "I'm ready. This ends now." I wasn't the same Jenna anymore. The woman who'd spent years bailing out her parents, who'd believed in family above everything, was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who wasn't going to let them walk away with my life in their pockets. That forged mortgage notice, the one with my name scrawled in someone else's handwriting, was the final straw. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for the truth, for the years I'd lost, for the right to say, "You don't get to do this to me." Carla, my lawyer, was a bulldog. She'd already started building a case, pulling bank records, loan documents, and anything else she could get her hands on. "We're going for fraud and financial elder abuse," she told me over coffee at a diner near her office. "Your parents used your trust to manipulate you into paying their debts, then forged your signature to take out more loans. That's not just betrayal, it's illegal." "What about Ethan?" I asked, stirring my coffee, the spoon clinking against the mug. It reminded me of Mom's chipped blue mug, and I pushed the thought away. "He's part of this, right? That offshore account had his name on it." Carla nodded, her eyes sharp. "He's a beneficiary, but we don't know how deep he's in. If he knew about the fraud, he's liable. If he didn't, he's still profiting from it. Either way, we're naming him in the suit." The word suit hit me like a brick. I was suing my family, my parents who'd taught me how to ride a bike, my brother who'd once punched a kid for bullying me in middle school. How did it come to this? How do you take the people you love to court, knowing it'll tear whatever's left of your family to shreds? But then I thought about that family meeting, the way they'd sat there dividing up my money like I didn't exist. I thought about Mom shutting the door in my face, Dad saying I was fine without them. They'd made their choice. Now I was making mine. A week later, Carla filed the lawsuit. Fraud, forgery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It felt like a bomb going off. I didn't tell anyone except Sarah, no friends, no coworkers. I couldn't handle the pity, the questions. But word got out. Small towns talk, and Albany's no different. My phone started buzzing with texts from cousins, aunts, people I hadn't seen in years. "Is it true you're suing your parents?" "Jenna, what's going on?" I ignored them all. What could I say? "Yeah, my family stole from me, then disowned me. Passed the mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving." Carla suggested we send a demand letter first, a formal notice to Mom, Dad, and Ethan, giving them a chance to settle before things got uglier. I agreed, but I wanted to deliver it myself. Not to Ethan, he was still dodging my calls, but to Mom and Dad. I needed to see their faces. I needed to know if they felt anything at all. 2 days later, I drove to their house. It was a Tuesday evening, the sky heavy with rain clouds. Their Buick was in the driveway, same as always. I walked up to the door, the envelope in my hand feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. I knocked, my heart in my throat. Dad answered this time, his face lined and tired, like he hadn't slept either. "Jenna," he said, his voice flat. "What do you want?" I held up the envelope. "This is for my lawyer. It's a demand letter. You forged my signature, took out loans in my name, and cut me out of your will after I paid off your house. I'm giving you a chance to make this right before it goes to court." His eyes widened, just for a second, then hardened. "You're suing us?" he said, like he couldn't believe it. "After everything we've done for you?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Everything you've done? Dad, I paid your mortgage for years. I gave you every cent I had.
And you stole from me.
You and Mom and Ethan." He shook his head, stepping back. "You don't know what you're talking about, Jenna. You're ungrateful. Always have been. Ungrateful." I stepped forward, my voice rising. "I sold my car, Dad. I worked double shifts. I gave up my dreams to keep you and Mom in this house. And you forged my name to take out more debt."
You disowned me.
"Who's ungrateful?" Mom appeared behind him, her face pale, her hands twisting in her cardigan. "Jenna, stop this," she said, her voice shaky. "You're tearing this family apart." "Me?" I said, my voice breaking. "You did that when you cut me out. When you lied to me, used me, and threw me away. This is on you." I shoved the envelope into Dad's hands and turned to leave. Mom called after me, "Jenna, please," but I didn't stop. I got in my car, my hands shaking so bad I could barely start the engine. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw them standing in the doorway, the envelope unopened between them. They didn't chase me. They didn't call. They just let me go. A week later, Carla got a response from their lawyer, Grayson. "No settlement offer, just a denial of everything. They're claiming you gave them permission for the loans," Carla said, her voice tight. "They're saying you knew about the offshore account, that you agreed to it all." I felt like I'd been slapped. "That's a lie," I said. "I never agreed to anything. They forged my signature, Carla. You've seen the documents." "I know," she said, "and we're going to prove it. But this means court. They're not backing down." I sat in my apartment that night, staring at that chipped blue mug. I'd kept it all this time, like some pathetic hope that Mom would come back, that we'd sit at my table and talk like we used to. But that Jenna was gone. I picked up the mug, walked to the trash, and dropped it in. The sound of it hitting the bottom felt like a door closing. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I wasn't their ATM. I was done being their victim. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about justice, about taking back what they'd stolen, not just my money, but my trust, my peace, my sense of self. I didn't know what would happen in court, but I knew one thing. They weren't going to win. Not this time. I stood in my apartment, the trash can still echoing with the thud of that chipped blue mug. It was gone, just like my illusions about my family. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of clarity, like I was waking up from a long, bad dream. I wasn't just fighting for money or justice. I was fighting for me, for the Jenna who'd been buried under years of guilt and obligation. My parents, my brother, they'd taken enough. Now it was my turn to take something back. Carla called the next morning, her voice sharp with excitement. "We got something, Jenna. The bank finally sent over the full records for that offshore account. It's a gold mine." She explained that the account wasn't just in Ethan's name. It was tied to a trust set up by Mom and Dad, with Ethan as the sole beneficiary. Over $120,000 had been funneled into it, most of it from the joint account I'd been pouring my money into. Worse, there were emails between Mom and Ethan, discussing transfers and keeping it quiet. They weren't just stealing from me, they were planning it, step by step. I sat on my couch, my laptop open, reading those emails Carla forwarded. One from Mom to Ethan, dated a month before the disinheritance letter. "Jenna's paid the last of it. We're clear now. Time to move forward." Move forward? To what? Cutting me out? Rewarding Ethan for doing nothing while I'd been killing myself to save them? Another email from Ethan. Just make sure she doesn't find out. I'll handle the rest. My stomach twisted. My own brother, plotting with them. How do you forgive someone who doesn't even think they did anything wrong? How do you look at your family and see strangers? Carla filed an amended lawsuit, adding Ethan as a co-defendant for conspiracy to commit fraud. This is big, Jenna, she said. We've got them on the ropes. But you need to be ready, they're going to fight dirty. I didn't care. Let them try. I'd spent years being their doormat, their bank account, their miracle daughter. Now I was their reckoning. A week later, I got a call from Rachel, my cousin who'd tipped me off about the family meeting. Jenna, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice low, like she was afraid someone might hear. I was at your parents' house yesterday. They're selling it. Selling it. I nearly dropped my phone. The house I paid for? Yeah, she said. They've got a realtor, papers, everything. They're telling everyone it's to downsize, but I heard them talking to Ethan. They're planning to give him the money. All of it. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The house, the one I'd poured every cent into, the one I'd co-signed loans for, the one they'd used to bleed me dry, was being sold to fund Ethan's new life. I thanked Rachel and hung up, my hands shaking. I called Carla immediately. They're selling the house, I said, my voice barely steady. We need to stop them. Carla was calm, methodical. We can file for a temporary injunction, she said. It'll freeze the sale until the lawsuit's resolved. But Jenna, this means you're going public. Everyone will know, your family, your town, everyone. I didn't hesitate. Do it, I said. They don't get to run away with my money. Within days, Carla filed the injunction, and the court granted it. The house sale was on hold, and Mom, Dad, and Ethan were served with new papers. I didn't hear from them directly, but Rachel told me Mom was furious, telling anyone who'd listen that I was greedy and tearing the family apart.
Greedy? Me.
The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. 2 weeks later, we had our first court hearing. I sat in the courtroom, my stomach in knots, watching Mom and Dad across the room. They wouldn't look at me. Ethan was there too, slouched in a suit that looked too big for him, his eyes fixed on the floor. The judge read through the claims: fraud, forgery, emotional distress. Carla presented the forged loan documents, the bank statements, the emails. Every piece of evidence was like a brick, building a wall between me and the family I'd once loved. Their lawyer, Grayson, tried to spin it. My clients acted in good faith, he said. Miss Thompson was aware of all financial decisions. She's exaggerating her contributions to paint herself as a victim. I wanted to scream. Exaggerating? I had receipts, bank transfers, years of proof. Carla didn't flinch. She laid out the numbers: $200,000 in mortgage payments, $50,000 in forged loans, $120,000 in secret transfers. The judge's face was unreadable, but I could feel the room shift. They weren't getting away with this. After the hearing, Ethan cornered me outside the courthouse. You happy now? He said, his voice low and angry. You're dragging us through the mud, Jenna. For what? Money. I stared at him, my brother, the kid who used to sneak me candy when Mom wasn't looking. This isn't about money, I said. It's about you lying to me. It's about Mom and Dad using me, forging my name, cutting me out. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to sue my own family? He didn't answer, just walked away. I stood there, the wind biting at my face, feeling like I'd won something and lost everything at the same time. The lawsuit wasn't over, but we'd exposed them. The town was buzzing, neighbors, old friends, even the cashier at the grocery store gave me looks. I didn't care. Let them talk. I was done hiding. By the end of the month, Carla had negotiated a settlement offer. They'd pay back $150,000, most of the money they'd taken, and the second mortgage in my name would be cleared. In exchange, I'd drop the emotional distress claim. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. I signed the papers, my hand steady for the first time in months. They didn't get the house. They didn't get to run. And Ethan? He got nothing but a court order to repay his share. I walked out of Carla's office that day feeling lighter, like I'd shed a weight I'd been carrying my whole life. They'd taken my money, my trust, my family. But I took back my power.